And on my QuickTime recording, oops, I lost it. Okay, new audio, and I'm recording and you're recording on QuickTime. And then I think,
Yeah, should I start it right now?
yeah, start it now.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, was I recording that whole time? Oh, let me do a new one. Okay.
Oh, and a trick that I learned for Zoom glitching and delays and stuff is like if you freeze, I'm just gonna touch my nose, and then hopefully you see that and just know that, so that I'm not like, hey, wait, what, oh, just like
Yeah,
a visual
that does.
indicator that there's like yeah,
I do the same thing, then
great,
I'll do the same thing.
okay. Um, Okay. Also, by the way, thank you for doing this. I'm excited to talk to you, and it's also just nice to see you. It's been a very long time.
Yeah, likewise. I know,
Very long
truly.
time. I know. I feel like we're both doing very different. We're just in very different places in the world geographically, and also just like
Yeah, it's been
figuratively
really
from
cool to
where we
see,
were.
like, yeah, like to see how you have evolved, like from being a potter. Like, I mean, I guess you're probably still a potter, so
There's
but
a part
it's
of me
quite a
that's still a
transformation.
Potter. Yeah. Okay. Well, so let's just dive in. Oh, how do you want me to introduce you? That was a part that I meant to ask that I forgot.
Um, I guess you can say that I am the like designer and creative director for the anti-waste gender-free fashion brand, or like upcycled fashion brand official rebrand.
Wait. Okay. Designer and creative director for the anti-waste, gender-free, uh, upcycled fashion brand. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Okay. Um,
I mean, if that's a mouthful, if you more just like you could also just say like of official rebrand.
no, that's fine. I'm happy to, I can say these words. These are great.
Upcycled. I'll probably talk about it being upcycled later, so
Okay.
you
So
can just
I'll
say anti-waste gender.
anti-waste, gender-free fashion brand, official rebrand. And I always thought your name was Me. Is it MI?
Oh no, it's MI. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think that people are always quite confused about that.
Well, it's funny because people often call me as a nickname because of my name. And so when I saw yours written, I was like, oh, we like our names are really similar, but it's MI. Okay.
Yeah, it's one letter off.
Yeah, very close. Okay, here we go. Today I'm talking to MI. Oh God, I don't know how to say your last name.
Oh, Leggett.
Leggett. Okay. All right, here we go. Today I'm talking to MI Leggett, designer and creative director of the anti-waste, gender-free fashion brand official rebrand. And we met doing trade markets on the Lower East Side of New York City like 4 years ago almost.
Yeah, yeah, we did a great trade. I
We
love trading, and so we traded like you had these wake and bake kits, dare I say?
Yes, that's what they were.
Oh yeah, can I? And yeah, I still have one. I like it was a bowl and like a cup, and I keep change in the cup now.
Sweet. That's
Still, so
lovely.
it's like very prominently displayed.
Your coat that
Yeah,
I
and
have
Mia
is,
got a coat
yeah, it's right here. It's on my bed
that
right
I
now.
had painted. Yeah, and I guess you should have worn the tank top, but
I
yeah, a tank top, like a painted tank top.
I could have worn the tank top today. I didn't think about it. But they get
I'm
plenty
not
of
wearing
wear.
work right now. Yeah.
Well, you're surrounded by all your things, and I saw your sweatshirt before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
hot. It's a little hot.
it's 90 degrees here today, which is painful. I'm also noticing that we're dealing with like a pretty bad delay here, and I'm not sure if that's
Okay. Let me go into. I can go move a little bit closer to the modem.
let's try that. I'm like pretty much as close as I can get, and I've been having issues today, so let's try it.
Okay. Yeah. Usually, honest, like I definitely have internet issues repeatedly. You get a surprise tour.
And if that doesn't work, I may try to connect with my iPhone instead of my Wi-Fi.
Okay. Let's see. Or should I sit down?
Oof.
I guess I will just sit in my bed.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'll have like really nice lighting at the window. Okay. Oh no, now you see like my whole room.
That's good. I can barely see anything behind you like that. Oh, no.
I'm gonna end propping it up on a pillow. Let's, yeah. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm just like, I'm always about the ankles. I wish I had cleaned for you. Oh my god.
It's all right. If you saw what I'm surrounded by, you'd feel better.
Oh no. Yeah, I'm like, oh, you know what? Sorry, I can go this way. No bed and frame either.
That's nice.
There.
Okay.
Okay, yes, very professional.
It looks very professional. It almost looks like you're at a desk. Okay. All right. I feel like it's a little better. Does it seem better to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Seems good to me.
All right. Let's try it. Okay, so the first thing that you said just a moment ago that I already want to talk about is that you didn't realize that boundaries were important until this last year, and I would love to hear what you mean by that.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of always thought that if you needed to have boundaries with someone, then you weren't actually, ride or die friends. And that in a strong relationship or a passionate relationship, there should be no boundaries and you should just be like completely sharing your lives. And I really love sharing a lot. And I guess I like grew up with two sisters, an older and a younger, and so I guess it was really fun like doing things all together, even though we fought a lot. And maybe that was part of the reason why I felt this way. I don't know. But
Hmm.
yeah, I just didn't really think that I didn't really think about boundaries. And I feel like people started to talk about them a lot more during the pandemic when all of our boundaries were being pushed and we were pushed into these really confined spaces with the same people for really long periods of time, and needing to sort of build new schedules or new routines and such. Um, so I think that was kind of what first had me starting to think about them, but I just didn't realize that they were part of a healthy relationships until more recently.
So how has that then changed your life or your relationships? What have you noticed about that?
Well, I've realized that you can't like expect one person to be your everything, and that's kind of a violation of boundaries if you expect one person to be able to carry like all of the emotional weight that one person might need carried for them, and like the importance of having like balanced relationships and different like multiple like different relationships with different people to like satisfy different sort of or yeah meet different emotional needs. um yeah, I mean, I also broke up with my partner of like many years, and I think that
Wow.
boundaries were sort of a kind of constant thing at play that it like sort of contributed to the dissolution of that relationship as well.
Wow. Um, I'm sorry, that's really hard.
It's okay though. It's like part of life.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it would have been better if like we had stayed together with things continuing to not work out and having all these boundary questions like sort of kind of being constantly fraught. Because I think once you have taken all those once you've taken all boundaries down, it's kind of hard to put them back up again.
Right. It starts to feel like rejection, or it starts to feel like some kind of like power shift.
Yeah, or like we're growing apart because we can't be this close anymore. We can't be
Yeah.
this entwined anymore. And yeah, I think it's a hard thing to navigate.
Yeah, it's true. It's really hard to like move backwards that way. I mean, it's definitely it seems possible, but very, very, very difficult. There was something that you posted recently that I wanted to kind of use as a springboard here, which was that you posted some photos of like old designs that you had made, and you were like, "Thank God I don't design like this anymore." Do you
Oh,
know what I'm talking about? Yeah, and what I wanted to
uh-huh.
ask you about is like the like when you look back on like how you arrived at where you are now, when did all of the sort of gosh, I don't want to like label these things as things that you maybe don't refer to them as, but like the the activist component of the work that you do, or the political components of the work that you do, when did that start to pop up?
Well, my fashion trajectory wasn't completely linear or direct. I always designed clothes when I was little and would take sort of household objects and turn them into clothes, and or like curtains or like my grandmother's old clothes. I would like cut them up and make them into new clothes for my little sister. Um, and then in high school, I got really into sustainable agriculture and small
Mm,
farms, and I worked every single summer on like in this sort of group of farms that was also like a youth development organization. So I was also kind of a youth being developed in this organization that was like getting teenagers working in agriculture and like learning about the food system and food justice. And so I became a food justice freak and like only paid attention to food justice for a while, which like intersects a lot with like racial justice and like economic justice and all these other things because like food touches everything. And so I thought I wanted to be a farmer, and then I ended up getting kind of so depressed by that whole space because it is really like pretty horrifying, like the state of the food system, and like inequitable like food, the sort of discrepancies in access, and like the climate change, like the climate impact of that of food. So uh, then like a few years later I was studying abroad in Berlin and started working for a fashion designer there, and they had me paint on clothes, and I was like to create clothes for them, and I doing that I was like, wow, this is something that I'm really really passionate about doing. And I just it felt so good to take a paintbrush to some clothes, and that sort of act of taking something that sort of seemed finished and sacred and just completely putting your own mark over it. Just I was pretty hooked after that, and I had also felt like I had never really found the right clothes to really like express myself. And I was sort of coming into my non-binary identity, and I wasn't out as non-binary yet, but this was something that I was kind of like feeling inside and trying to figure out, and having clothes that were just completely unique to myself and
mhm.
had my own marks on them and weren't like the clothes that anyone else could have, um, made me feel really affirmed. Um, but because of this whole back like experience that I had working in food justice and knowing so much about climate justice and climate change, that kind of pushed me to like know that I couldn't really be doing fashion if it wasn't going to have a hard sustainable edge. And I've also just always really liked utilizing things that are being or not being utilized in like waste. I've always like created things from waste, and so it was just sort of like a natural intersection of those things. And then I finally came out as non-binary, and that just sort of, it made sense to sort of wrap my own identity into the brand, as clothing is like a layer of identity. It's like the sort of your first layer of armor that you put out into the world. It's a way to signify. If you don't identify really with the body that you were assigned, using clothes, you can kind of completely construct your own image. And so, yeah, I started to make it, I turned it into kind of a brand. It was just my Instagram. I was just posting pictures of clothes that I made for my friends and myself in college. And then as I transitioned out of college, I got some press reached out to me on Instagram, and it kind of went from there. So I realized that this is actually something that people beyond just my immediate closest friends could be interested in, and that there could be a wider market and people actually feeling empowered by the clothes besides just my friends and myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a kind of long-winded answer.
No, it's always amazing to hear how it's like it's almost never a conscious choice, It's like it's just where you are now is like the very organic outgrowth of like various experiences and like river channels that you were already flowing in that just kind of like came to a delta and now is like all one river. What I'm already kind of noticing here is you mentioned that you really like sharing when we were talking about boundaries, and then this aspect of like this brand sort of originating within your sort of tight-knit community. And something that does really come across in your social media presence is that your brand has a really strongly rooted community in like people that you work with over and over with your friends. And even like I remember so vividly seeing you at what market was it? The Essex Street Market? Hester Street Fair. Yeah. And I remember, noticing that like you seem to always have like a rolling crew of friends coming by, whether one was like the photographer or one was like the model or, whatever. And that really does come through. So how, I don't know, can you talk a little bit about that? It seems like it's such an integral part of the brand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that friends and art are like two of the most important things in life. And uh, yeah, I guess if I've learned anything in the past year, I mean, it's like that. You always have to value your friends so highly, and being a good friend is so important. And um, yeah, I don't think like starting the brand, having like making zero budget photo shoots all the time. I don't think I could have created a brand if there weren't friends who were excited in what I was doing and excited by the clothes and excited just like to be playing and like trying on these kind of like personas or like express themselves in different ways. And I think that that's something that I still try to foster with my photo shoots, is like this sort of energy where people can experiment and try a new thing and sort of play around. Like, I also feel like this is maybe something that I should work on with setting boundaries with myself, that I'm working so much of the time that I might as well be friends with the people that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
As the brand has grown, I definitely see the reasoning for needing to like also keep some boundaries and like having professional working relationships. I'm honestly pretty casual, and maybe like too casual with people that I work with some of the time. So that's something that I'm trying to work on, and especially too with like boundaries with friends. Um, it's kind of a difficult question, because I feel like if they're wearing something cute, like I want to repost it, but then like is it okay for me to tag a product in that?
Mm-hmm.
And those are kind of questions that I guess I look to other brands to see how they handle it as well. But as as the business has become like more financially sustainable, I think that's something that I grapple with a lot on like how to handle it. And like I think that for the first several years of the brand, I realize now, looking back on like how I'm running things now versus how I was running before, I was just like working so much and putting so much into it and still getting so little out of it financially, and just like throwing myself over and over and over at my work, without really like getting it to actually like a sustainable place. And that also resulted in me, depending on my friends a lot, and that support, like it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have friends who were like excited and ready to support me. um yeah, and my partner too, I depended on her like so much for things. And I think that, that was probably contributed to the sort of boundary breakdown that I had alluded to previously. um
Yeah, I struggle with that myself, like with running a business and being so like feeling like my work is so deeply personal, um that,
mhm.
if I feel a connection or a resonance with someone so much so that I want to work with them, then I probably also want to be their friend. And that's really
Yeah,
complicated because,
definitely.
yeah, and as you said, like
Mhm.
relying on someone, it makes it really blurry what needs are and when things are offers versus requests. Like you might give a friend a
Mhm.
piece of clothing and think that it's totally a gift for them, like it's just, and you're just offering it to them, but they might feel some sort of implicit pressure to like wear it and post about it, or like tag you whenever they're wearing it or something like that, and it makes
Well,
things
that's
really gray.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, is that I'm such a hype man, like, and I also love gifts, and gifts are like my love language. So I'm always giving people gifts. And but also anytime that I get a gift from someone, I will always post about it and like always tag, and like love to do that, and love to just like share again, because sharing your social media is like the easiest thing to do. Like it doesn't cost any money. It's just like you're sharing, and you're like connecting community members and like people who are supporting each other. So I am sometimes kind of confused if I give someone something and they don't like post anything about it, because for me that's like the first thing that I want to do. But again, like not everyone has like completely commercialized their Instagram, and like
Mm-hmm.
I have to kind of remember that like not everyone is a hype man, and like not everyone is trying to like, yeah, monetize their social media. And that's, I think, the weird thing about having it be such a personal account, but like at the end of the day it is a business account. And um and not everyone wants to have a business account.
Right. Not everyone wants to be an ad, too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the fact that I like adify myself so much, it's it's weird, because like I do feel so passionate about like my work and like sharing other creators' work, and like I just like love hyping people up. And I think that in a past life, right, like in an alternate reality, I could have been a publicist, because I love, yeah, just hyping people up and like spreading positive messages and such. Or yeah, and so I think it's just, yeah, it's important to respect other people's boundaries and how they want to use that, their like platforms, and that not everyone is coming from the same attitude.
Their bodies too, how they might want to use their bodies. Like that's a really interesting thing about fashion that I think is unique to fashion, or maybe fashion and jewelry, where it's like you put it on and you sort of become, whether you choose to or not, you become an ad for the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that also some people are like, this is my outfit now. Like, I created this, I styled myself. Like, I am embodying it, I am activating it. This is me now. This is not like some design that I'm gonna tag on Instagram, because like I am not their brand. Like,
Right.
I am making this my own. And to a certain extent, that's like what official reprint is all about. Is just sort of like embodying yourself and figuring out how you feel most comfortable to present yourself, and like having the space to experiment with your self presentation to figure out what's best for you.
Mm.
It's not, I also like, one reason why I do workshops with people where I teach them how to like use different kinds of paints and techniques for upcycling stuff, is because I can't make the perfect piece of clothing for everyone. And there's something so special about making something for yourself, and making like thinking about what would be the perfect thing for you to wear, and then just making it.
Something that's coming up for me that
And
it almost
that's another thing too, why I always feel, that was one thing I was gonna say about how like name brands sometimes kind of confuse me when people are like Calvin Klein, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna wear like Calvin Klein like so big, and it's like, this is just some man's name, like
it's literally a
um,
human's name. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a
exactly.
funny one. I remember there was like a trend, I feel like, when I'm a little bit older than you, but like when I was in middle school and high school, there was a major trend of like just wearing the thing with the name brand on it. Like DKNY,
Mm-hmm.
Jockey, Calvin Klein was a big one, Ralph Lauren, Abercrombie and Fitch. You know, it was like you just wanted the shirt with the like the brand's name on it.
Yeah, it's like logo mania, and that's still going on today completely. Like, look at Supreme,
Mm-hmm.
and like the Gucci. I mean, even just like the Gucci Balenciaga sort of fashion inbreeding situation that just happened, where like all I have to go on right now is like, oh my god, Balenciaga, like we're gonna just mash up our own logos and it's everyone's gonna go crazy, like, and yeah, I mean the whatever. I don't need to go into like more fashion collab logomania things.
Well, something that I really appreciated about your, like, it wasn't just that you were upcycling stuff. There was an element of like, I'm going to take this thing that you believe is worth $5,000 because it says Prada on it, and I'm going to just like slap some paint on it and make it my own, and then decide that it's a new thing. Like, there's a whole existential crisis in there that your art speaks to. Is that, was that, uh, like very intentional?
Yeah, I mean, I don't paint on like $5,000 pieces. Really, I definitely I will paint over like knockoffs, and I have painted on like some designer things, but yeah, I think that a big thing that I was focused on when I first started, and it's always still kind of in my mind, is like authenticity and how people really chase it, and the sort of chasing of like all we want is like authentic relationships, but then we also like that pans out to also wanting like authentic brands, and why knockoffs are like so pervasive, because you can have this like look of having an authentic brand but like not for actually the price.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I love bad knockoffs, because, well, I don't really know why I love that. I guess because, yeah, it kind of shows the sort of futility of trying to chase authenticity through a label, because whether it's a bad one or a good one, you're still trying to buy authenticity. And like I think that authenticity more like comes from the inside than comes from what brand you want to wear, which is maybe a controversial thing to say as a designer, but um, yeah, like we all just like want to be real and want like to have real relationships, and then you have these brands, and like brands that sort of have worked for years to build an image, that people want to buy into, but it's also like superficial to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm also
yeah,
just
honestly, the
noticing.
people who speak to this.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that like the artists who speak the most to this phenomenon, from my experience, has just been hip hop artists like
Mm-hmm.
Young Thug and Kanye West and like Frank Ocean all have like really good songs about like authenticity and like comparing like brand authenticity to like friendships. And yeah, I think that those were like very inspiring artists to me at the beginning. Um,
I just was noticing that I sort
process.
of said very flippantly as though you slap some paint on the things that you make, and I wish I had not been so dismissive, because it's very not true. It's very clearly very deliberate and very skilled. But I was sort of speaking to the like anti name aspect, I guess,
Hmm.
um, of the work that you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that kind of speaks to just the name of the brand is official rebrand, and I guess it was originally kind of a joke. But that is pretty much what I'm doing. It's like rebranding these things and like taking these like finished sort of like sanctified consumer objects and then just being like remixing it and saying it's something totally new and like completely gay.
Yeah. I'm there's something that you're kind of talking around that I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, because I've for in my work as a writer, like when I was writing plays and then again as a ceramicist, like with every new medium I have had to learn and relearn this lesson over and over again, that trying to be universally accessible is like the death of art. That like versatility is not the goal, and that specificity is actually what means more to people, and it might not mean
And people
more.
love their niche.
Right, right. And people love to go, like, people love it when they see something that resonates really hard with them, as opposed to something that seems like it's, you know, accessible to the highest number of people possible. And the way that you've been talking about your work and like the time you spent in Berlin and being asked to paint on clothes, like, is that something that you've wrestled with at all?
Um, Sorry, can you say that again in like a shorter term?
Yes,
Sorry.
in like one question. That wasn't really a
Oh,
question. The conflict that
like finding a niche.
so the conflict that I constantly find is like the push and pull between like being universally being as accessible as possible, like as relatable as possible, with specificity. And what I've noticed over and over again, the lesson that I learn over and over, is that specificity is what impacts people and resonates most with other people. Um, but from the way that you've been describing your work and your sort of journey, it almost sounds like you don't worry about being the most accessible. Again, not a question. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, people used to ask me things all the time about like who is your target audience, and I would say like I don't really have one because like anyone can feel like empowered through their clothes, and like weirdly like a lot of my original like a lot of my strong like biggest clients like at the beginning were like middle-aged women who were just like all about official rebrand for some reason. um and yeah, like there would just be people like so many different kinds of people who would like it, so I didn't really want to be putting anyone into any boxes. And um I think that it being so like gender free both like opens it up and it also like closes it because it is like a very queer brand, but it's also, I'm not saying like this is clothing only for non-binary and trans people or gay people. Like it's also, it's like it's something with stylists too, where they'll come and they'll be like, oh, so is this like men's or women's, or is it like for everyone? And just saying like, oh, it's for everyone, like that actually then opens it up and makes it actually less niche in a way. um Though yeah, I mean, I think that I'd like to think that I'm not just like yelling into an echo chamber, but I think probably most of my customers are, and people who are following me on social media are, you know, in the queer community or allies to the queer community. um and also people who are, you know, probably thinking a little bit about the environment,
Mm-hmm.
though they might not necessarily be like environmental activists. um yeah, I don't know. Like I guess I sometimes wonder too about like how vocal to be about my own like transition and like my gender journey through my social media. And I, if that, you know, alienates some people, I think that the benefit though of it like helping some people like far outweighs the risk of alienating people. And if people are going to be alienated about that, then I don't really want them to be like repping the brand anyway.
That's a
um
that
so I
place
guess
of sorry. Finish. You can finish what you're saying.
I'm done.
Um, that feeling that you just said at the end around like if people, you know, if you sharing your authentic story and your authentic vision like alienates people, then they can kind of fuck off anyway. um is like the that's the confidence piece that I feel like I'm always like, you know, when I'm really aligned, when I'm like really in flow, and when I'm really feeling um like the messages that my body is giving me about like what feels true and real, then I feel like I have that confidence. Like I can feel it, I can sense it, I can embody it. And then there's those moments that sort of take me out of it that I think are fueled by like, well, but I have to make money, you know, or like looking at my bank account moments, or moments where I'm like, this post doesn't seem to be resonating with people. And then I, you know, I fall off the tracks a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, sometimes when I post really personal stuff, like I lose followers, but I've
Mm-hmm.
also kind of realized like as much as the brand is not MI Leggett, the brand is official rebrand, I'd still I've I've realized that the best thing I can do is like be my authentic self, and people do appreciate that and like want to actually get to know like who is making their clothes and who is behind like whatever they're doing. So if some people are like, "Oh, like you're just like some white twink, like unfollow," like with some like weird baby pictures that you're or, like weird pictures of you from childhood, like I don't have want anything to do with this. Like, okay, that's definitely fine. Um uh yeah, or like I don't know, like this isn't like a company with like a bunch of employees. This is just like one person like running this out of their living room. Like unfollow. um yeah, like okay, that's fine. I think that then like by also sharing that stuff, I'm gonna just have like a stronger relationship with the people who are interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah, it sounds like that's not your target audience. You said like people have asked you who your target audience is, and my immediate thought was like it sounds like it's really kind of your community. Your target audience is like your friends. And then anyone who sort of identifies with what it is that you all are trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. And like I definitely am surprised at like the kind of people that it does resonate with, and even just through like friends of like my parents who see my work, I wouldn't really expect it to resonate with them, but uh, like a lot of them, it seems to be something that they're not used to seeing, and it's like kind of eye opening for them. And even though I guess yeah, I'm not really like catering my output to them at all, but it is like makes me happy to know that like people who or like who maybe like wouldn't have found it necessarily organically on their own are still finding it and feeling impacted by it, or at
Mm-hmm.
least paying attention to it. They might not even be impacted by it, but they are paying attention.
And just the power of like them knowing that it exists, because I'm thinking of my parents' friends who are being impacted by the fact that my parents have a non-binary child, and that they're kind of having to learn by proxy and witness my parents figure that out. Like there something that's been coming up for me a lot, and I've been like talking about with friends, is that my mom was a magazine editor. She wrote for women's magazines like Glamour and 17, and she wrote this weekly column, or I don't know, whatever, monthly column, called the How to Do Anything Better guide. And so there's been this sort of air in my household in my childhood that was like, if my mom tells me something specifically around like how to be a woman, that she was right
Mm-hmm.
because she knew how to do anything better. She literally wrote the guide.
Oh wow,
um yeah.
intense.
Yeah. And so there were things that my mom did when I was growing up, such as when I was 16, she offered to get me laser hair removal for my upper lip, thinking that she was like being a really good mom. And now when I've tried to like, and also on my legs, and when I like haven't shaved my legs and been like, oh, I kind of, maybe I just don't want to shave my legs anymore, or like I don't want to deal, I want to see what happens if I don't like bleach my upper lip. I have these like bald spots that are very awkward and strange that I don't like. And it's because my mom, like I can't even, I feel weird now even like embracing the hair, which I would like to be able to embrace, because now I have this like splotchy mustache on my face because my mom was trying to like, make sure that her person who she thought was her daughter at the time, like would be the most appealing to the highest number of men possible, which of course is like scarcity mindset. It's incredibly cis heteronormative. Sorry, say that again.
It also like doesn't depend on you to attract a man or a partner based on your own like internal merit.
Nope, not at all. It also assumes that I'm straight. It assumes that I'm cis. It assumes all these things, and it also the idea. And I'm like starting to notice that I think this has to do with the like impetus that I feel to be as accessible to as many people as possible. The idea behind like her motives were, I just want as many men as possible to find you attractive. Like she would never say that, but like that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, I can relate. I had a very similar experience. I don't really want to go into it, but yeah, I had a very very similar experience happen, and it made me definitely feel like oh, I guess like my looks are gonna be the thing that I use to like secure like financial stability.
Yep. Yep. That's a very real pressure.
Like I think my parents wanted to be an artist, and so like if you're gonna be an artist, like you're probably gonna be pretty poor, so you're gonna have to look your best.
Yeah. Oh my God. When I was in college, my dad and I were on the subway once, and I was considering declaring visual art as my major. And he was like, Mom and I have talked about it. And like, obviously, you're an adult and you can decide whatever you want. But we really want to like strongly encourage you not to declare visual art as your major because we don't want you to rely financially on a man. And he was like, and this isn't because you're like, I think he knew what it sounded like in part, but he didn't really understand what it sounded like to someone of my generation's ears. I didn't end up declaring visual art as my major for a number of reasons, but yeah, so many assumptions in there that I would rely on a man, that I would want to date a man, that I would need to rely on anybody, like that I wouldn't be, I don't know, that I wouldn't have job prospects. I mean, there just was like so much in there that was wrong.
I think it shows like a lack of understanding too of like how being a visual arts major doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a starving artist, like that there isn't like a whole like industry of art to be working in, and like so many things that you can do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did end up minoring in visual art, and I'm very glad I did. Plus they were like all for it as soon as it became commodifiable as ceramics. Like as soon as I was doing like functional ceramics, they were all about it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I was a visual arts major, but it took me a while. I went to school as like I applied as an environmental science major because I wanted to change the food system. And then that was too depressing. Like if everyone who studied environmental science was always like so depressed. And and I was an art history major because I just didn't think I could do it. And then I took an art class and was like, you know what? Like I really like this and I think I can do it. So it took a while to like trust myself to go for it, but then once I took an art class I was like, I don't want to do anything else but this.
Where was that?
At Oberlin.
Oh, that's right. I think I knew that you went there. I'm curious about this because you've been very public about your gender journey and the like how the brand has changed and stuff. And I wonder how you see your work, like has your work um this is such a leading question, and it's just like from what I've witnessed, it has almost seemed like there's there's like a mirror, like your work is a mirror for you, and that you've been able to like sort of use that like bouncing back and forth in like the in between space of like wherever there's you and then there's your work, and like I've just seen so much sort of this like cyclical mirroring thing going on, and I'm curious what your experience of that has been.
I mean, I think there's also maybe a little bit of like a, this is the wrong analogy, but like a cat chasing its tail, or like I'm sort of
Mm.
like projecting and like in a way that I can kind of like connect with my subconscious a lot of the time, and I'll make a piece, and then after I'm done with the piece, I'll figure out what it's actually about. And this was, I think, even like is even stronger in my like sculpture and drawing and like performance work. But I think still same with like the clothes and like the creative direction and the casting and like what I'm interested in, and like who I want to be sort of like the face of the brand. Like I see a lot about where I'm going, even if I don't necessarily have the words or like the thoughts totally like succinct in my head yet. Um, like I knew that I was like non-binary, but I didn't really know exactly like in what way. And yet I was like so like wanting to design for trans people and like make clothing that was affirming for trans people all the time, and was always like very interested in like the idea of like transcending gender and transitioning and like just yeah like gender piracy in all different forms and like experimenting and trying things on. And then it was only like in the past year that I was like, oh, I've been thinking about transness as like a cornerstone of my work for years, like, and I hadn't really like given myself the space to be like, wait, am I trans? And yeah, I remember a friend had asked me, like my friend Josie, who I collaborate with a lot, like was asking me like, well, how do you identify, like are you like a part of the trans community, or like, and I was just like, yeah, I guess I don't really know. Like, I guess I would say I'm like trans adjacent. Like, yeah, part of the community. Like, I'm dating a trans person, and like most of my friends are trans. I'm non-binary, so then I think within a couple of months of quarantine, I think this happened to a lot of people. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you are like stuck with your thoughts for a long time. You can't avoid these things that you've been trying to avoid thinking about for your whole life. Like, oh my god, I'm trans. Like, how did I not realize this? Hard. Like we're totally ingrained. Like even being a non-binary, I was like, well, whatever. I don't actually have to think about it. Like I'm just neither, so it's fine. And like I still feel that way, but it's like I still feel like actually like really much more interested in tapping into this like masculine side of myself that I've always kind of like focused on helping other people express their gender identity and like figure things out, so that I didn't have to reckon with the actual pain of like coming to terms with that, and like coming to terms with like wanting to transition and wanting to be like really in a different body. Like that's, it's really painful. And like there's a lot of like shame that I felt when I like first kind of came into it, and like still sometimes. And yeah, I mean it makes sense that I wanted to like, you know, deflect those thoughts and like focus on other people, on other people's gender expression, for a long time. So it's also been interesting because of COVID. I haven't really done any photo shoots this whole year and have just been kind of modeling things on myself. And I know like that's been really empowering for me to figure out like different ways to play and like present myself. But I know I'm also not like, there's no universal body, but like I said, I'm like, you know, a twink. Like that doesn't really represent everyone. And I definitely need to, now that it's like people are vaccinated more and stuff, like really do some more photo shoots with some more people, because like I can't represent everyone at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
It's yeah.
Oh, but yeah, I guess that answer your question. I don't
No,
know.
it
I like went all
totally,
over the place.
yeah, it totally does. And you know, my questions are as meandering as your answers. So thank you for finding the question in there. I have this theory that whenever we like want something, like just having the desire generally means that we're actually closer to it than we might be aware of. And that like noticing the desire, like actually becoming conscious of the desire means that we've actually wanted it for a long time, and we've probably been unconsciously working toward it to the point where when we actually name the desire, we're like pretty close. Does that feel at all like what you're describing?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Completely. I
Yeah.
feel like I was just sort of like surrounding myself with like queer identity and queer culture and queer theory, but wasn't really ready to like center, like super acknowledge my own role in all of that. Like I wasn't ready to.
Yeah.
But then once I was ready, I was like, well, I already have this like amazing infrastructure for like thinking about gender and like thinking about fashion as a way to like express my gender and experiment with it. I just miss like going out and like I don't really have reasons to get dressed all the time. And so I'm looking forward to the days when I can get dressed to go outside every single day and have that opportunity to really just like create the image that I want to project in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it's an empowering practice. And I remember I went to a uniform school when I was a little kid, and so anytime we could wear like civvies and like not wear a uniform to school, I remembered I made like such a huge deal out of it, and like having that the privilege to wear whatever I wanted was like such a exciting thing. And I think
Hmm.
that's kind of shaped how I feel all the time about getting dressed. I'm like usually always so excited.
I am too. I really miss that aspect. And sometimes I just do it to like go to the farmer's market. I'm like, I'm just going to put these boots on and do my makeup under my mask just so that I know that that's what I look like. Um, I heard you said something about, oh, I lost it. I don't remember. Been very interested in this like this mirror metaphor of like being in the like being in a bathroom where there's like a mirror in front of you and a mirror behind you and it just goes on forever. And I'm almost envisioning like you in that bathroom between like your work, your brand, and like your I don't know what's behind. I don't know what the other mirror is, but it's like yeah, being able to like cuz they grow off of it seems like they sort of grow off of each other. Like your self is in your work and then you see it reflected back to you and then you get to like adjust to that new reflection and then cuz you have this like very visual indicator of how you feel about gender, about waste, about capitalism, about money, like all these things are sort of built into your brand and you get to watch yourself grow and change with with your relationship to those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm feeling also like a feedback loop as
Right,
well,
right,
and I
right,
think
right.
I'm just like so as much as like it's a lot of like spreadsheets and like SEO optimization and like a lot of just like grunt business work, but I also am just like so blessed to be able to like have a place to put my like creative energy. That said, it is also weird knowing that like I do shape my work knowing on what is going to sell, and I
Mhm.
think I need to try to like delineate some boundaries for myself in like time that's just like you can paint whatever you want. It doesn't matter if it's going to sell or
Yeah.
not. Um, and I think that that's like something that probably I would be surprised if any artist hasn't grappled with this. Or like any artist who's like selling their work for money or like, yeah, like monetizing their like emotional and like physical labor as well. But yeah, doing what you should do like because it's like like the financially the best move, or doing what you want to do because it's what your like subconscious is telling and like your emotions are telling you to do and what you need to like work through and stuff. And I think what you need to work through is always going to be like more raw and valuable, but the market is the market. So something that you just
Yeah.
constantly wrestle with,
You know,
unfortunately.
I just had a therapy session before this, and one of the things that came up
So
was
all warmed up.
Yeah, right. I know, just following that train. Um, Something that has been coming up for me a lot lately is this idea, including in my business, that like certain balls are rolling. I've planted seeds is another metaphor. And like, I don't really have to chase the ball. Like the ball is rolling, it's going to happen. All the blocks are in place, like, and it's going to happen. And this feeling that's new that I'm noticing is not feeling like I have to chase the ball. Um, and in your story, the ball is like, what's going to sell, or like whatever's going to sort of make you money or blow up or whatever. And what I'm hearing you talking about when you're talking about boundaries, it's like you're almost talking about setting up a container for yourself in which you can play. And what I was talking about with my therapist was that um it's almost like if I'm chasing this kid, like if I chase if I'm chasing anything, I'm like imagining this visual of like being at a park and I'm chasing a kid and the kid is running away from me because I'm chasing them. And as soon as I stop chasing them, they can slow down and play. They can explore and they can look at their surroundings and they can make friends and they can do all these other things. And so what I'm hearing you say is that you want to like build yourself that park, like the structure of whatever that is, so that you can play within it. You don't have to actually chase anything for that, at least for that period of time.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'm like trying to like access that space right now and accept that I actually have done all the groundwork and I've chased the ball for so long and I've put so many like I've just been working so much for the past like 4 years on this that like finally things are like really actually falling into place more
Mm-hmm.
and I can kind of I don't have to necessarily do a minute of every day or in the times where I let myself not um be worried about how I should be working. And because I think that, yeah, it's like, especially with being at home all the time, like you're or like working from home is also kind of like you're living at work.
Yep.
And that sort of breakdown of boundaries is was definitely really hard to deal with. And I also used work as a way to like sometimes just lose myself so that I didn't have to focus on like other things in my life that were falling apart or other things in my life that were that were really hard in the past year. And so I just threw myself into my work, and that was kind of like a coping mechanism in a way. But also kind of coming out of that, needing to be able to be like, okay, like I sold a lot of stuff already this month. Like I can give myself some time to just paint whatever I want now and see what comes out. And like just focus on like there are more things that I should like more products that I should be uploading onto my shop so that I can like sell more and more. But like you know what? Like it's actually okay for me to just take my time and like do that next week and like give myself a little bit of breather right now. Um,
It's hard to give
and
yourself that
also do things like
permission.
yeah, but it's also like giving myself space just to read a book. Like it takes me so
Oh
long
my
to read a
God.
book, and yet when I do read books, I get so many like new ideas, and my worldview is expanded, and I learn new words, and like I get to rest and not be looking at a screen or not be like holding my paintbrush, or something like that. But um, it's still not something that I have like built. That sort of like me time is not something that I've like built into my workday enough. And yet it's definitely going to be only beneficial to my work to like have new ideas bouncing around my head that like some people have spent, years putting together and synthesizing onto a page for me to read. For me and for like everyone else to read as well. And I think that's a scary thing about being so just like in the social media ecosystem is that I'm so used to just like can I take this in like 160 characters and like only like 10 slides at most? And like not all ideas can be encapsulated into an infographic.
Right.
Um,
Right. That the conflict is that particular conflict, I think, is really um significant when your art is your business, because I've
uh,
also been working on like um figuring out how to schedule playtime for myself and to consider that part of my work, to be able to give that to myself
Yeah.
and be like, yeah, this is part of your work day. And also to consider like healing and rest as like also part of the work and not the thing that you just do like before or after work hours. It's really hard.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely part of it. I think circling back to something that I said earlier of just like not everything can be fit into an infographic. I actually like recently did a project where I was trying to just like make infographics.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to synthesize like all of these statistics about water usage for different clothes and like how much water it takes to make a certain like certain piece of clothing, just to give people like really powerful, like very Instagrammable, like memorable statistics, because we have like so many statistics all the time. It's so hard to like parcel them out and like really contextualize them. I mean, with COVID, like we're hearing these like absolutely tragic numbers every single day, and yet we become kind of like disillusioned to them. And like anyway, so I wanted to make these like these infographics, and then while I was doing it, I found like all the data was like completely conflicting
Hmm.
and all measured in different ways. And I actually like I was chasing different statistics, and they ended up like at dead ends all the time. And like I actually just combined like, you know, universe is how much water it takes a pair of jeans. And so instead of making these statistics, it was like for a zine that I'm working on for Earth Day, which probably by the time this podcast comes out, it will be live. So I'll give you the info for that.
Okay.
But yeah, I ended up writing about how like there is actually no one size fits all solution to sustainability and solution to like what like how much is okay to buy,
Mm-hmm.
and how it can't like everything can't be reduced to infographics or like Instagrammable pages and things that are gonna like go viral on social media, or like that are designed for being shared and like looked at for 2 seconds. And yeah, so definitely trying to make more space for myself to like follow these ideas and really like research things in like a more serious way than like the researching that happens when I'm just scrolling and then like look at something for a little bit.
Yeah, it's really interesting that the information that you ended up with was like meta information about the micro information that you were finding and like its own limitations and shortcomings.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just like how the sort of intention that I had at all was just kind of like fruitless when like sustainability, there's just like no one size fits all solution. And it's just like that data is also like evasive because like the fashion industry also doesn't really want to pay for studies or like a universal system to measure how unsustainable it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that would be a huge reckoning
But that is
for them.
yeah, definitely. But the zine that it's for, it's with this other brand that I collaborate with a lot called Etcha, and it's coming out on Earth Day, and it has a lot of amazing contributors.
That's so
It's called the
exciting.
Anti-Green Sheen zine. Yeah,
The
it's the second
anti-green.
edition. We did it last year.
Can you say that again? The anti-green.
Sheen, Anti-Green Sheen zine, and it's an anti-greenwashing zine, and like sort of
Cool.
a empowering guide to living sustainably in different ways.
Cool. And is just for anyone who doesn't, my understanding of the word greenwashing is that it's sort of about like the commodification of environmental sustainability for selling products. Is that how you would describe it? Or how would you
Yeah,
describe it?
I think it's also like the commodification of sustainability, but I think it's also about sort of like it's a bit of a smoke and mirrors type of thing, because like you can just look at a kind of like any sort of packaging and just be like, okay, they branded this to be like it's brown or like it like says it's made from like 35% plant materials, or like it's like says all natural on it, which like doesn't actually mean anything.
Right.
Or it has like some certification that you can just pay to get that doesn't actually mean anything either, but it's like this brand that says that it's a sustainable seafood or what have you. Like USDA, USODA, you can just buy, like the farms that I worked on were not certified organic because we couldn't afford to be certified as organic, but like most of the organic food that is just certified by the USODA is like factory farmed, like not actually organic, but they can just pay to have it certified. So that's why you should also look for like multiple organic certifications when you are buying organic in general, or just buying from like a local farmer.
Right.
Is always the best, but not always available. Like I don't live near a farmer's market, unfortunately. Yeah. But yeah, so greenwashing, it's like, yeah, like I said, smoke and mirrors. It's about like also people using bad data. And like I was using some of this data in my own work. Like there was this figure that was like all over the internet that was like, it takes 1,800 gallons of water to make a pair of jeans. And I made an entire project of jeans like based on this statistic. And then I went back to try to find that statistic to make a really Instagrammable infographic about it. And everywhere just linked a different article, linked dead links, like linked things that did not exist anymore, and I could not find it. And I realized that I had, pretty much also just been participating in greenwashing because I couldn't actually validate this source, and it was like a convenient statistic for me and like a powerful statistic, but I, not actually sure like how that data was taken now. And so that's greenwashing too, is relying on bad data. And I mean, I think that people were saying for years that fashion is like the second most polluting industry in the world, and there wasn't actually really proof for that. But I said that, like so many people said it, and then people were like, yeah, but like the oil industry, like the aviation industry, like they're out. I don't know. Like also like how do you what? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, how do you quantify that? And like, yeah, just how do you quantify like most polluting, and like is that per person, or is it because of the size of the fashion industry, whereas there might be more polluting, like more polluting industries per person, but they're smaller industries? Like those overarching huge statements like that just always beg the question for me, like what are the statistics? What are you considering? I mean, this is like a whole philosophical thing, but I largely like don't believe in statistics because they're always conducted, like they're always gotten by people with agendas and goals and ulterior motives.
Yeah, who's paying for the statistics? Yeah.
Right.
So to continue on this like statistical rabbit hole, like for this piece that I wrote, I like couldn't find the right statistics for fashion, so I decided to like there probably are more like hard scientific figures about plastic bags because governments have to base their policies on what they should do in the grocery store. And like we're having a bag ban in New York that has like not actually taken, like it was put into effect, but like it was not actually put into effect. And in Europe, like you have to always pay extra for your plastic bags, but also like you can get paper bags too, and that is like seen as like more sustainable, but paper bags actually like take more energy to make, and are like less sustainable to make, but then their end of life cycle is like more sustainable. So you're basing this off of like carbon footprint and then like end of life, and those are like two different things. And then another thing was like how many times do you have to use a reusable cotton tote bag to balance out the environmental impact of a plastic bag. And one report said you have to use it 5,000 times, and another report said you have to use it like 170 times. And so like they're all judging on different criteria, and you can read what those criteria are, but it's very hard to make a comparison. And I like did a really deep dive on this, but like your average consumer is not going to go and read like all these different European reports to decide how many times they should use their tote bag before they can buy a new one.
I'm even thinking, I'm already flagging like what's considered a time. Like, is one time the time that I went to the grocery store, or is it like, I have a tote bag in my car that has stuff in it that I need to have in a bag in my car? Is that one time? Like, how are people even deciding what one usage is,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like the average, allegedly, like the average lifespan of a plastic bag is like 15 minutes. But like, yeah, what is the average? And then what is the average American family? People are always saying that.
Yes.
Who is she? Like, I don't. Like,
Yeah, who
who's
are these
average?
people?
Like,
I'm also,
excellent. Yeah,
like
exactly.
plastic bags can get repurposed. Like I use plastic bags to take out my cat litter. And if I don't reuse the plastic bags, then I buy compostable bags and then I'm paying for like new bags. It's anyway, I'm with you on that. I don't think there's the statistics don't mean anything in and of themselves, and we don't get the information that comes along with the statistics or how people arrived there and what they're counting.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is like there is just like no one size fits all solution because yeah, like you have a need for single use plastic bags and like I have a small trash can and so like I do need to get like if I get a plastic bag from the bodega then I use that as my trash can liner and then I like that's like I was gonna need something to do that anyway. Like
Right.
now I'm not buying like liners for my trash bag for my trash can. So yeah, I guess it's just all about figuring out like what works for you. Another thing too that I do is that I sometimes if I'm going out and know I'm probably going to be going to a bodega or something like that is I'll just put like a plastic bag in my other bag that I'm using because or like in my pocket or something because carrying a little plastic bag around like a single use plastic bag is so much lighter and like carrying around a tote bag like just in case you like buy some groceries like unexpectedly. I think that carrying around a tote bag is like a lot clunkier but you can put a plastic bag can be so tiny. Yeah,
They
so
definitely
I think
serve
that
a
that's
purpose.
also kind of a handy trick.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm aware of the time and I want to ask you my question at the end of all my episodes, which is if you can share 3 things that you feel have led you to the way that you think today. So whether that's books, a class that you took, a conversation that you had, a person that you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, let me think for a second.
Yeah, take your time. We can edit out any and all pauses.
Yeah, 3 things that led me to think about the way that I am.
Or to think the way that you think.
I guess I could think the way that I think. I think the first thing that I would say was definitely the book that I just finished. It was Testo Junkie. I can show it to
Oh my god, I read Testo Junkie. Yes, like living in Bushwick at this coffee shop.
Good.
Oh my god, Testo Junkie. Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can be like, yeah, the book that I finished like yesterday, but it definitely was really, really helpful for me to be reading someone's like very in-depth experience about taking tea, especially someone whose like identity wasn't like necessarily figured out completely at the time of like some of the reflections in the book, and so
it's
that was
almost
really
written. It's almost written as though they're like doing an experiment, and. Yeah, they're like experimenting with what will happen, but then sort of like find their gender identity in the process.
Yeah, which really like resonated with me as someone who like experiments with clothing and uses like definitely thinks that like gender is something that you have to play with and like experiment with before you can actually find what is right for you. And also just thinking about the sort of history of like the medical industrial complex, I guess, and the sort of like how I was, pretty much estrogen was like forced on me from the age of like 14, and how like women's liberation was so tied to like being on the pill when like women's liberation could have also been tied to so many other things, and it didn't necessarily have to be tied to taking more estrogen, like womanize or like feminizing yourself even more. So starting to take testosterone while reading Testo Junkie, I think has definitely like formed how I'm feeling like right now, at least a lot. Yeah, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I guess like definitely a recent change, or not a recent change, but thinking more about play. Like there was a conversation that I had with Ariana Gill, who's the creative director of Brujas, and I was at her art show, which had I was kind of coming for a meeting, but it was like at the gallery that she was like exhibiting in, and at one point, I mean, it was like it was like a free play space, and so people were like, it was in a gallery, but there was like skateboarding, and there were like soccer balls all over the place, and like kids could just come and like play, or like youth, like teenagers were just coming to play and like goof around and stuff. And I was like, wow, this is like a really sick art show. And then sort of like in between our meeting, she's like, let's play dodgeball, and like got the whole group of kids who were there, and like just the whole team, like crew, to play dodgeball. And I was like in the middle of a business meeting just like playing dodgeball, and that felt amazing. Like, this is so great. Like I haven't like played like this in so long. And Ari was like, yeah, play is politically urgent. And I was just like, oh my god, like I hadn't really thought about how important it is to play, and I've just been so like tightly wound up for so long, with like just a lot of things in my personal life that were like really, and like a lot of business relationships that were falling apart, and like my like long-term relationship ending, and I was just like, I hadn't really given myself any opportunity to just like play and be like kind of loose. So yeah, it felt that was like a kind of like breaking open moment. And then I would also say another like breaking open moment was when I was designing in Berlin. Like I was working for another designer in Berlin, Fabio M. Silva, and they had me paint on some clothes for a pop-up shop that we did in a toilet stall. And I was painting like penises on the t-shirt for them, and like over and over and over this like little penis design, and just like doing that felt so good. And putting like my paintbrush to this finished t-shirt just kind of like broke something open in me, and I was just like, wow, like I can just like paint on a shirt. Like I don't like it, it's not finished. Like I have not finished with it. I can like change this thing infinitely. And like these objects can actually be fluid, and I can morph them into whatever feels right for me. Like that was really like life changing, honestly.
That's so cool. I'm tracking like my own construct of time changing as you put a paintbrush onto a seemingly like otherwise known as finished garment, and giving it like changing it into a new thing, and sort of determining that it's alive, that it can change infinitely.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we've got Testo Junkie, reading Testo Junkie while on tea.
Yeah.
Right?
Or like while starting tea.
Yeah, while starting tea. Dodgeball with Ariana Guild of Brujas. And painting
Gil, yeah.
Gil?
Yeah, Gil.
Okay. And then painting tiny penises on a shirt for a pop-up in a toilet stall.
Yeah, I guess you could say you could say just painting penises. You don't have to say they're tiny. And for a Fabio M. Silva.
Okay.
In the toilet stall.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. This was great. It was really nice to catch up and hear more about what I only get to witness from the outside.
Yeah, no, this was such a pleasure. I'm like, I want to start a podcast.
It's fun. If you want to know how to do it, I could tell you.
I'm like, so I think I want to be an intimacy coordinator. Like, can we go?
Do you know that that's one of my?
Your brain.
How do you know that that's like?
Yeah, no, I was listening. because
Oh,
I was listening to the podcast.
oh,
But
okay.
I just, yeah, I like listened to a couple. I want to get through. I like didn't realize that this question was coming at the end because I had listened to like the first half of a couple of different ones to sort of like get a feel of.
Yeah, so you know that that's like one of my least favorite things in the world. It's just that people